Ja, först ut idag har vi alltså District Metals, ett mycket spännande bolag som listade på Nasdaq First North den 23 januari igår och som Alexander nämnde ringde klockan på börsen igår. Bolaget fokuserar på prospektering av metallfyndigheter i Europa och har flera spännande projekt på gång. So we're going to switch to English for this one. It's my pleasure to welcome up here to the podium Garrett Ainsworth, who's the CEO of District Metals. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Yes.
All right, so the clicker is there and you're all set, so let's go.
Excellent. Yeah, okay. Good stuff. So District Metals, we entered Sweden in 2020. We have a number of very exciting base metal polymetallic projects and uranium polymetallic projects that I'll get into here. Just the cautionary statement, you can find this on our website for more information. And just from a very high level, so what you get with District Metals is a team that has proven to be successful in all aspects of mineral exploration, discovery, and through to production. It's very important to have that kind of a team. It does because if you don't have that backing a good project, it sometimes doesn't work out very well. Obviously, we're situated in Sweden. It is an incredible jurisdiction to be in. The current center-right coalition government is very pro-mining. They're actually saying things that they're doing, which is great. So our flagship polymetallic uranium project is Viken. It has historical resources on it of 1.15 billion pounds of uranium, 16.7 billion pounds of vanadium, along with significant other critical and important raw materials. We also have 4 other uranium polymetallic projects throughout Sweden. And then we also have a collaboration with Boliden on the base metal polymetallic side, which started in early 2024. So they're funding $10 million over 4 years on the Tomtebo and Stålberg projects. District Metals is the operator. We get an operator fee. We're in the second year of this agreement. And at Tomtebo, I mean, we've had some very significant drill results, 30 meters of 7% zinc and all the other metals. These kind of grades are actually, that we're seeing in the drilling, are higher than what's currently being mined within the Bergslagen mining district right now. So I won't get into too much detail based on time, but I mean, myself, I'm a geologist by training. I spent a lot of my life in the Athabasca Basin looking for and discovering high-grade uranium deposits. I was a VP exploration for Alpha Minerals. We got bought out in 2013 for $189 million. Then I went on to be VP exploration for NextGen Energy. When I joined NextGen, the market cap was 50 million Canadian. When I left, it was $3 billion Canadian, so big success story there with the Arrow deposit discovery. But once I got a hold of District Metals and we entered Sweden, we built up the team. So Hein and Rodney both used to work for Boliden. They're brilliant geologists on the base metal polymetallic side. Our CFO Marlis has just been key in driving many important processes, such as our recent listing on the Nasdaq First North Growth. We have an extremely well-rounded board with Joanna, Doug, and Jonathan. And then on the advisory side, we're very well connected and backed in Sweden and with corporate communications and financial advisors as well. So with the share registry at District Metals, we've been very much concentrating on getting the right shareholders in. We have a very large institutional following, high net worth. We've got funds out of North America, also out of Europe. And one of our very large and strategic shareholder groups is the Jordan Fund, obviously based out of Sweden, and was part of the reason why we decided to list on the Nasdaq First North Growth market. And as I mentioned, Sweden, I'm quite biased, but as a jurisdiction to operate in, it really doesn't get any better. There's a history of mining here that's incredibly good. Sweden is a powerhouse when it comes to supplying metals for Europe. There's many big players in Sweden, such as Boliden, BHP, Agnico Eagle, LKAB. Atalaya Mining is a newcomer to Sweden, also Mandalay as well. In terms of getting drill permits, things go very quickly. There's a form for everything. Could not be happier to be operating in Sweden. So a big component of our success as a company is what's going on in Sweden with nuclear and the government's intent to lift the uranium moratorium. So about 30% of electricity in Sweden is coming from nuclear energy, and the current government plans to expand 10 more nuclear reactors by 2045. This big push is very much in line with their desire to lift the uranium moratorium. So this moratorium was put in place in 2018 by the past Social Democrat Green Party coalition. And more recently in 2024, the current government, which is more center-right, put out an inquiry report into lifting the uranium moratorium that was very positive. What's happening here is the government is moving towards bringing a bill to lift the moratorium in September of this year. The government states there's a majority to approve this bill, and upon approval of the bill to lift the moratorium, we would see a very significant re-rate on the share price and market valuation of District Metals. And then that change to legislation only happens January 1st or July 1st, so it would happen January 1st of 2026. So looking at the Viken property, this is our flagship uranium polymetallic. It was initially discovered in the 1970s by the Geological Survey. The last company that developed it with Continental Precious Minerals. They did substantial drilling. They put out historical mineral resource estimates and also preliminary economic assessments that showed positive numbers. And the one thing that's really important to note is that they reached a market capitalization in the last uranium market of $330 million Canadian, and that compares quite nicely to our market cap of about $47 million Canadian. Also to the west of us, Aura Energy has the Hagen deposit. They put out a scoping study. It's an economic study on a mining scenario for Hagen. The numbers out of that came back very positive, and I would encourage anyone to take a look at that report from September 2023. It really shows the potential value of these alum shale deposits within central Sweden. So I mentioned the two historical resources on the Viken deposit, 2010, 2014. They had different metal contents or different metals were used in each resource. That's one reason why we're updating the resource to make it current. This will be out in the second quarter of this year. We're also looking at maybe bringing in some other metals and elements, some rare earths potentially, into an updated resource, so to add more value to this project. And one thing that's really important to note is in the last uranium cycle, it was actually the low-grade uranium deposits that resulted in very high, the higher monetizing events or getting bought out for much higher. So in 2007, Uramin got bought out for $2.5 billion US from Areva, which is now Orano, for quite a low-grade deposit called Trekoppi. And then in 2012, Extract Resources got bought out by CGN, a state-owned Chinese nuclear company, for $2.2 billion Australian. And these were much higher than any buyout that ever happened in the Athabasca Basin, which is known for high grade, where Hathor Exploration got bought out by Rio Tinto for $650 million on that front. So the value of these lower grade uranium deposits is quite substantial based on past cases. And these uranium deposits in Africa did not include the other metals like vanadium, nickel, molybdenum, and other critical and important raw materials. So the whole reason why we jumped into Sweden was really because of the Bergslagen in 2020 with our Tomtebo project. And what we saw was this district that had gigantic deposits like Falun, Garpenberg and Zinkgruvan, very large. You know, Garpenberg and Zinkgruvan, they're mining it down at the 1,400 meter level, very, very profitably. And then we looked around the Bergslagen and we noticed that, you know, there had not been much modern systematic exploration. So that's where we saw the opportunity. And that's why we're operating Tomtebo, Gruvberget, and actually Stålberget as well, which is Boliden's project that they've brought into our collaboration with them. So it was late 2023 when we reached an agreement. Boliden's funding $10 million over 4 years. We're in the second year of that. We're the operator. We get an operator fee. You can see Tomtebo is about 35 kilometers along strike from Stålberget. Stålberget is a project that I would say is very analogous to Garpenberg. At the end of the 4 years, Boliden will own 85% of both projects. We'll own 15%. But the situation here is we are looking for another Garpenberg or Zinkgruvan. So, you know, 15% of an asset like that is probably going to be a much higher market capitalization than where we're at today. And so some of our past drill results at Tomtebo, specifically the Steffenberg zone at the historic Tomtebo mine, have been extremely good. You know, intercepts of 12 meters to 30 meters with grades of base metal polymetallic that you know, are higher than what you see being mined in the Bergslagen today. We do not have a formal mineral resource estimate at Tomtebo yet, but obviously that's something that we are working towards before any kind of an economic study could be started. But I mean, based on these drill results, it's looking really good right now. Another way to look at the Steffenberg zone from an oblique angle, hole 42 had a very good intercept of 29 meters, 1% copper, and then other polymetallic metals included in that as well, wide open. And right now at Tomtebo, we are drilling underneath this mineralization to see how far it extends. And this is quite shallow. We're only like drilling it down at 300, 400 meters. Whereas, like I said, you know, at Zinkgruvan and Garpenberg, they're mining it down at the 1,400 meter level, 1.4 kilometers down at depth, and they're doing it very profitably. So in terms of you know, milestones, upcoming catalysts, we recently started trading on the Nasdaq First North Growth Market and also got to ring the bell. That was a very exciting time for the company. We'll be looking to release drill results from the Stålberget project within the month of March, so coming out, you know, pretty soon here. We started drilling at the Tomtebo project, you know, a few weeks back, and then we should have results coming out of there, you know, in the coming months. We started a updated 43-101 mineral resource estimate on the Viken deposit, which should be out in Q2 of this year. And we also plan to commence some fairly significant exploration work on our Swedish uranium polymetallic projects during Q2, Q3 of this year. And then we'll be back drilling the Stålberget project in the second half of 2025. And then upon an approved bill to lift the uranium ban in this September, then we'll look to commence a preliminary economic assessment on the Viken deposit. So we have a full slate of activities for this year. We're going to be really busy, so please follow us and don't hesitate to reach out.
All right. Thank you, Garrett. That was a great presentation, and on time too.
Excellent, even better.
I can see your stock is up almost 2%, so good job on that. Must have been your presentation here. So I wanted to just get into this quickly. For those who might not be too familiar with the field, what are the advantages, first of all, in investing in mining companies in today's macroeconomic environment?
Well, I would say right now a lot of mining, mineral exploration development companies have valuations that are very depressed. You know, a lot of capital has made its way into cryptocurrency. Prior to that, it was into cannabis, and you know, it's also gone into AI. So there's been a lot of distractions of capital away from the resource sector. But at the end of the day, we all need these critical and important raw materials, and that's really going to fuel the future of green energy transition and tech, and getting to net zero carbon emissions, which most developed countries around the world are aiming for.
Yeah. And you mentioned uranium, and we're seeing a resurgence of the interest in nuclear now. Would you want to give perhaps the audience a little bit more insight into what you're seeing from your perspective there?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I was active in the last uranium cycle, and I got to say the nuclear renaissance that we're in right now has much better fundamentals than the last one, in that, supply-wise, basically there's no significant supply coming on stream in the short term. And then on the demand side, that's gone, right up. So we have, all these developed nations are looking to go green energy transition, go electric cars, and AIs need these computing centers and that's going to take a lot of electricity. I'm seeing some countries are saying they need to increase their electricity power by 6 times. There's also cryptocurrency as well. That's it takes a lot of energy as well from the grid. But also, what complicates the situation even more is the current geopolitical situation. Right. So we're effectively in a Cold War right now with China and Russia, and that's really going to disturb the flow of uranium around the world.
Yeah. So without getting into politics, I mean, how does it affect your company with the unclear messages perhaps now around tariffs and so on?
Yeah, so this is an interesting development. I mean, I think the EU and Canada, and we always knew we couldn't trust China and Russia, but now we can't trust the USA. So that really kind of puts us into an even tighter kind of Cold War scenario where there's protectionism on resources, and it puts District Metals in a really sweet spot in terms of our control of these very significant deposits with uranium and other critical and important raw materials in Sweden that really give power to Sweden and the European Union to be self-reliant and not have to depend on China, Russia, and the USA.
Yeah. And you mentioned you have a joint venture with Boliden, who might be a company that more of our viewers are familiar with. You want to give a little more detail as to what that joint venture, how that's set up, and what the future is there?
Yeah, definitely. So Boliden is spending $10 million over 4 years to advance the Tomtebo and Stålberg projects. District Metals is the operator. We get a 7.5% operator fee. And the thing is that the Stålberg project was brought in by Boliden. Yep. I would say it's got a lot of similarities to their Garpenberg mine. So it's quite significant. And the combination of the technical teams from Boliden and from District are very significant. It's one of the most powerful technical groups, I would say, around. And plus, we also get to use Boliden's proprietary downhole electromagnetic survey, which helped them to find new deposits at their Garpenberg mine in the early 2000s or the late 1990s. So yeah. It's I think we feel very fortunate to be teamed up with Boliden, and so far it's just going extremely well. But the key thing here is that we are looking for a big base metal polymetallic deposit with Boliden. We're not looking for something that's just quite small and not going to move the needle.
Yeah, so that's going to be the big bet then.
Yeah, is getting onto something, and that requires capital. And one of the good things about being backed, financially by Boliden is this allows us to be more aggressive, to drill.
Can you scale faster?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So we might. It's a 4-year term, but we could speed that up to be a 3-year term if we decide that we get onto something really interesting. But I mean, once we speed that up, then we form the joint venture just that much faster.
Yeah. And I think uranium prices have risen by something like 200% since 2020. What other materials do you see have a resurgence right now from the ones that you are involved with?
Yeah, so I mean, copper is definitely a very important metal in terms of the green energy transition.
Yeah, the electrification.
Yeah. Electrification, yeah, reaching that net zero carbon emissions. You know, our Viken deposit contains a huge amount of vanadium. Vanadium is mostly used right now for strengthening steel, but you know, one thing that's starting to really pick up the pace for vanadium are these vanadium flow redox batteries, and they're used for long-term energy storage for renewables, like for the wind turbines and for the for solar energy. And you know, as that starts to pick up, that could be a real wild card, because right now the price of vanadium is about $5 or $6 per pound. In 2018, it reached $30 a pound. So you know, it has proven to be very inelastic, and it has huge price spikes. But the wild card here is if these redox batteries really take off, then that adds a whole new element of value to our Viken deposit along with the uranium.
Yeah, we actually got a question here from a viewer about the Viken deposit. Are there any plans on a JV there, or will you try to develop the deposit yourselves?
There are no plans for any kind of a joint venture on the Viken property. And the reason being is because I feel like we have totally full access to financing for us to advance it on our own. Yeah. So that's if we can do it on our own, we don't need to bring a partner in at this time. And you know, the game plan will be to advance it to feasibility. Yeah. And then along the way, if there's a monetizing event, great. Once we get to feasibility, then we need to make a decision to build a mine. That would actually be a time for me to step back and bring in a CEO that is a proven mine builder. It's a bit of a different skill set than what I have as being a geologist. And my passion is really about, you know, discovering, delineating, and getting to economic studies. But yeah, building a mine and operating a mine is completely different. So I think that's an important for investors to know about District Metals.
All right. I think that's about the time that we have today. We have time for one last question. Do you want to remind the viewers again of what are some of the big triggers, some of the big events to look out for if you're following your company or your stock?
Yeah, so within the next few weeks here, we should have drill results out from our Stolbette base metals property that we drilled late 2024. So keep your eyes open for that. And then we've started a updated mineral resource estimate on the Viken deposit. So the results from that will come out in the second quarter of this year. We'll also have you know, drill results out in the coming months from the drill program that's ongoing at Tomtebo right now. Again, that's the base metal project. And then we'll be looking to do some significant exploration work at our Swedish uranium properties within Q2, Q3. And then, you know, upon a successfully approved bill to lift the uranium moratorium, that will mean we'll kick off a preliminary economic assessment for the Viken deposit. So there's a lot of action going on, which is really good for news flow, and we're going to be very busy.
All right, sounds great. Well, thank you, Garrett, so much for being here and sharing this with us today.